But what you realize is sometimes when you're doing that and you're so concerned about that digital connectivity, there's a lapse in the human-to-human connectivity. So a lot of our discussion today is going to be about being really careful about when and how we use social media. When we use it in a way that, when we're not thinking about this idea that it might be replacing our human-to-human interaction, we're more likely to fall into those traps of being more disconnected from people. If we're aware of it, and that's my real main message today, if we're aware of that potential for disconnectivity, then we can use social media very effectively because our expectations will be correct for what the purpose of that is, and then on the human side, we'll be paying enough attention to that so we're not, missing that point. The reason why this is important is because mostly you and I have been raised in this society, and our kids and any generation after us is existing in a world where Facebook always was. At least most of the people in this room know a world when there wasn't Facebook. So we're in this really interesting point where we know the world before this, and now we're entering into it. Generations after us are always going to have that. So you can actually think in a really nuanced way about this. Yep.
Well, I think when you're the center of the universe, I guess, or you're thinking of your organization, you're so conscious of what's happening in your life too, and happening within your organization. And so, at least for me personally, it makes me a little more reflective about what's happening, for the organization, and so I can try to think of it and tell everybody in a meaningful way.
Great. So key, how to use social media effectively. That actually I think is something most people don't do automatically. Be more reflective. And I think that if you can think of social media when you're presented with it as an opportunity to be more reflective, that is certainly a big benefit of social media. We had other hands up, yeah.
I was just kind of going to add on to that as well. I think it makes you have a bit more of a conscience maybe about your actions. Like you might be doing something because you're like, oh, I don't want that to end up on Facebook.
So you might self-censor online in a way that you wouldn't offline?
Yeah.
Okay, because you're concerned about how that could affect. So you might actually be more considerate in that space. Okay, yeah.
I think it can serve as a great tool of documentation.
Sure.
And kind of showing, your personal progress, but also maybe your organizational progress, and just thinking in terms of like grants and that sort of stuff. Where you can show yourself almost developing as you are developing.
You can show yourself developing as you're developing. So it's a live documentation that others could view and be involved in. Okay, yeah.
I'd say a presentation, like you really think through what.
Well, I just wanted to say that it gets to a certain point where sometimes you're repeating a lot of the same information when you're talking to somebody, and I don't know if it's just because we're so used to telling everybody all at once, but it kind of gets annoying to have to repeat yourself over and over again. And you get to a point where the first few people you talk to, you're really engaged and you answer all their questions, and towards the end you're just kind of like, whatever. And then it's just kind of hard to separate your online or what you do online and what you do, like you said, offline.
Yeah.
But then it's also kind of deciding who is actually really interested in what you're saying versus when you're online, sometimes you just check in with people, oh, how are you doing, what's going on, and kind of discerning between the people who are actually really interested in real life versus they kind of saw something you posted and wanted to bring it up just to talk.
Yeah.
And versus somebody who's actually interested in the project that you're working on or whatever impact you're trying to make.
That's a really great point. Ryan, me of your name again?
Grace.
Grace. Okay, Grace. Good point. And what you make me think of is this idea that we're so used to sharing information in that quick way of getting it out to a lot of people. When we're offline and it comes time and we have an opportunity to share in a much deeper way, have we to some degree lost our ability to really do that well? Do we feel anxious when we're just with one person and expected to keep up a deep conversation? Do we reach for our phone if it rings because it's a nice distraction? Are we addicted almost to the distraction of that while you're studying or reading or talking to someone about something? Do you think of going to your phone because you're just so used to always having many things to do?
And there's that, and the other side of the coin is there's the constant expectation that everyone is going to be having access to email, having access to text message, phone call all the time.
Sure.
So if you don't, if I go out without my phone, I feel like I'm missing so much, even though it might just be a few text messages.
Right, exactly. And so the expectation that is created silently but concretely, that we're supposed to be on all the time. And that's not really very human. That's not really how people work. Yeah, Marguerite.
Doesn't it fall into the addiction and
What do you think?
you know, very hyper mental driver?
Yeah, absolutely. And how would that affect a relationship?
To me, any addiction is out of control. Is no good.
Right.
You know? Takes too much energy out of you and your life.
Yeah.
And to me, how meaningful is what you communicate with others? How meaningful? I mean, I don't know how young people like you guys, I mean, find time to be on there talking to so many people at the same time. I have time to check my messages maybe 2 times a day, in the morning and at night, and I just cannot find time to do anything else. I'm always reading or going and coming or teaching or studying.
Living life in real
So,
life.
to me, I guess I do feel the shock of the younger generation, you know, the cultural shock, the generation that you are in, because I can see my son.
Yep.
And even my grandchildren now, you know, they want to be there.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I see them wasting their life in a lot of meaningless communication, meaningless interaction. That's maybe a traditional way of seeing things.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really great point, because you say this meaningless interaction. Everyone in this room really cares so deeply about certain issues and wants to have an impact on the world. And so how sad would that be if it turns out that all this traffic back and forth and retweeting and activity doesn't actually amount to a concrete change?
I was just going to say about like being addicted to your phone, like even the other day, like someone stole my phone. And like,
Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. It's fine. And then I literally just felt so naked. Like, it was just like, oh my god, like what's going on? And like, every 5 minutes I would reach to where my phone would have been to get it. And then like an hour, not even like 2 hours later, I was like, I can't do this. And so I went to the Verizon store and like got a new phone. And like, I couldn't even last like a day.
I'm going to guess that for people who were raised entirely in an online connected world, maybe it's not such an obvious thought, that we don't have to be on all the time like that. And in fact, being off or being offline is central to our ability to understand the issues that we're even trying to work on, craft meaningful solutions, and then put those into practice. Try to pay attention to the behaviors that might be effective online in raising awareness for your organization, getting people interested in your cause, but be aware of how that translates offline, and self-aware to how your behavior is with other people and with yourself and how you treat yourself, and try to draw a line between what works online and what is strategic and effective online, and what works offline and is strategic and effective offline. And I think if you can bring those two pieces together, then you're all going to change the world in really positive ways. So that's it. Thank you guys.